welcome everybody. My name is Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back again with the messages for the week of April 27th, which is the last week in the month, and then we are headed into May and kicking that month off with a very powerful full moon in the sign of Scorpio, which is inviting in closure, transformation, and a whole lot of change. So hopefully you've been following along as we have been moving through all of this really historical type of energy. And we have just seen Uranus move into the sign of Gemini, where it will stay and will not return for 84 years. So it's really something that we experience as a once in a lifetime event. If all of this sounds intriguing to you, you want to make sure that you're clicking on that subscribe button below. That way you get notifications every time I post new content, which I do on every weekend, as well as daily. So if you're interested in what the tarot cards have to say that go along with the astrology, you'll want to follow me there on the dailies, which are on many of the platforms out there for you. Even more helpful is going out and subscribing to my website, maraleeburnett.com. That's where all of my written content is. And that way you get a full picture for every month. That is a written monthly horoscope and a new moon and a full moon in May. There will be 2 full moons, which means we'll have a blue moon at the end of the month as well. So May is pretty packed full with activities and you won't want to miss them. So if you join my website, you get all of that content emailed to you for free and you never have to go trying to find it. All right. And there on my website, you can also book sessions with me. So that way you can be fully prepared, especially for the big transition that is coming in July. Lots of things are changing. The nodes are moving. Jupiter is moving. The sign of Leo is getting fully activated. So we're going to have a lot of fire energy with all the planets that are in Aries and then Jupiter going into Leo. There's a lot that you want to be prepared for. So of course, click on that subscribe button, like and comment, and we'll see you next week for all of the upcoming details there as well. But for now, here in the wonderful Astro Gold world of astrology software, we are going to start looking at Monday, April 27th. I'm going to give you a breakdown of all of the events for the week, and then I'm going to create a separate video that will cover the full moon in Capricorn and next week. Next week is really not, I know I keep saying this, but next week truly is an unremarkable week compared to where we've been. So next week's video will be, more about just settling into the energy and the shifts that have just happened. So speaking of that, here on Monday, April 27th, we do see now, as I mentioned, Uranus in the sign of Gemini. So it moved in on late Saturday night. Maybe you felt a rush of change. Don't exactly know what it is yet, but just something feels different. And that can be that Uranus in Gemini energy. Now, I did create an article for that, and I'll have the link to that below here as well. That gives you a little bit of the mythology, a little bit of the history, and a little bit of what you might expect for your sign based on this movement. Also, as of last July through November, that was our first introduction to Uranus in the sign of Gemini. So it moved forward for a few months, and then it went retrograde, and then it moved back into the sign of Taurus, where we've been wrapping up the work from 2018, which was when Uranus first entered that sign. And now a new chapter begins. And instead of just a brief visit, now this planet will start to settle in and create the change that is necessary for us as a society so that we have breakthroughs. And so now those breakthroughs can begin. And Gemini is all about gaining knowledge. It's information systems like AI, like telecommunication, like transportation, like the sky and all of the things that go up in the sky, like rockets and things that support us. So there's a lot of things that we'll be keeping an eye on in the sky. Now, we've all heard this many times now that last time Uranus was in the sign of Gemini, of course, was World War II. The last time that Neptune was in Aries was the Civil War. So we have this need to understand what we're fighting for. And what we're fighting for is intended to move society forward, not backwards. So that's the point of outer planets like Uranus, like Pluto, like Neptune, working in harmony, is they're helping to create societal changes that will move us forward. And so it was February when we saw Neptune and Saturn step into the sign of Aries and give us something to consider that was worth fighting for, or a dream that we could reimagine and pursue again. So all of those things now are very active and possible. And now you have two outer planets, which is Uranus and Pluto down here in Aquarius, that will be speaking in harmony to one another for quite a while. So silently working beneath the surface, behind the scenes, in the air energy to change and transform it. Freedom of press will be something that we talk about a lot. And maybe the satellites that are in the sky, and are they actually satellites? Are they drones? What's going on in the skies? These are all topics, along with AI, that we'll be watching closely till 2033. That's how long we have Uranus in the sign of Gemini. And somewhere in your chart is this Uranus energy. As I mentioned, you might have felt it somewhere over this previous weekend as the planet moved through here, following in Venus's footsteps as they both left the sign of Taurus. And so Taurus was grounded, heavier energy. Gemini is air, it's light. Things begin to feel lighter. They also move more quickly and swiftly. And then Gemini is the sign of the twins. And the story of those twins was what they could never be in the same space at the same time. So one was in the underworld, one was here with all of us, right? And they would have to change places, but they couldn't ever be in the same place at the same time. So you were literally living the two separate experiences, the light and the dark, and then they could switch, but they could never meet in the middle. So there's still that energy of needing to find balance between the light and the dark that we'll be going through and experiencing. So lots to do, lots to uncover, and you'll want to take a look, as I mentioned, at my article to get a little bit more of the history about the transition of the planet through this sign. As we also kick off Monday with Venus, as I mentioned, who just stepped into Gemini as well. She is also speaking in harmony with Pluto. So this could be women in leadership roles, women who have something to say, women who are leading groups of people, which is Pluto and Aquarius, women who have new ideas, who have a way to help move something forward in our lives as a collective. And so where do you have these early degrees of Gemini showing up in your chart? And what are you ready for? A fresh perspective, for an opportunity to maybe look at the other side of a situation and decide to do something different. And remember, Uranus is we breaking free from something. So it is why you will have freedom of the press, because they're going to break free from being restricted and restrained. And how information gets to us will be different. It will be more innovative in how we gain news, for instance. So the other thing it does is cause us to move more. This Gemini energy. That is the third house that is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury rules movement, transportation. So we have this desire to not stay put, but to get going in some area. So again, really depends on where this is hitting your chart, or you're going to want to break free and look back, right, to the 2018 work, and how were you affected by that Uranus change back then? Where did you have the biggest breakthroughs? Where were you breaking free from something? Where did you see a lot of maybe chaos and turmoil? And then now, has it settled? And are you happy? Did you finish the work? All those conversations are what you could have with your astrologer to get a clear picture on where these next 7 years may be taking you. And speaking of 7, we have the sun sitting at 7 degrees of Taurus, and that means it's perfectly aligned with the north node in Pisces, where we're headed, and that south node in Virgo, where we're leaving, where we're moving on from, where we're releasing, letting go of everything having to make logical sense, and allowing faith to guide us instead. That's that north node in Pisces journey. And these two meeting with the sun is highlighting fate, is highlighting the work that we've been doing since January of 2025. That's when this last shift happened. It's this July where they will shift again. So we are down to the last few months of learning the lessons, of letting go, of having more faith, of leaning into our gifts. And the sun is shining a light on whatever work we need to do, and it's harmonious. So the spotlight could be something that's benefiting you financially. It can be a benefit to you physically. This is earth energy. So there's something about what is going on maybe in the markets on the Monday, the 27th, that could bring good news. So a positive day is looking like what is lining up for us as we kick off this week. So let us move ahead as we get to Tuesday. And what I really love about the energy on Tuesday is this beautiful, although brief, grand air trine. And a grand trine means 3 trines. So 3 planets in the same element are all speaking harmoniously. And that provides us with an opportunity, but we have to do something with it. We can look at it and there's this fabulous thing that shows up, but if we just look at it and we don't do something with the energy, then it can just be wasted. So don't waste this opportunity. Wherever you have Venus at 5-6 degrees of Gemini and the moon in Libra, and remember that Pluto energy in Aquarius, there is almost a delicious opportunity, like some maybe really good news that has you feeling amazing about whatever you're learning right now. But it will require change, right? This opportunity is showing up, but we have to do some hard emotional balancing in order to get comfortable with what this is. And as that moon's in Libra, it is lit up. So it's, of course, sitting across the sky from Saturn in the sign of Aries. So Saturn will help to bring structure and discipline to what it is that's being offered you. So the moon's like, oh, I love this and I just want to do it. And I just want everything that's fair for everybody else, moon in Libra. And Saturn says, what about you? Saturn's going to always remind you, what about you? What is in this for you? Not in a selfish way, like in a realistic way. If you do this, is it fair to you at the same time? And then it's being lit up by the North Node in the sign of Pisces, but making this in conjunct or quincunx energy. Granted, this moon moves pretty quickly, so these may be just like bursts of enlightenment or a bright idea, a brief conversation, maybe associated with somebody that is meant to help guide you on your path to the future. But the energy on Tuesday is a big bundle and mix of things that are activating our emotional self from the moon's perspective and activating those nodes. So multiple activations of the nodes of fate and destiny, multiple activations of that moon in Libra, which wants emotional balance, means actually it's not so balanced and we have to do a little work to restore the balance. But more than anything, trusting our intuition, trusting our guides to help move us through the energy on Tuesday so that we become aware of this great opportunity for us and make sure that we take advantage of it. So look at those three houses. Where's Venus? Where's the moon? And where's Pluto? And who is showing up with a new opportunity for you? And as we move ahead to Wednesday, I mentioned that there would need to be some change as a result of whatever that opportunity was. And that's because now we see Venus as she's moved forward in a square, or what we call a T-square, with that South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces. So there is an idea, there's this opportunity, there's a conversation, there's information that comes your way that is fated, and you're learning about it at this time because a change is needed. In order for you to continue the work that you are meant to be doing, you've got to change the way you talk to yourself, the way you talk to other people, the way you're thinking. You can't stay stuck in thinking like you always have and move whatever this opportunity is forward for you. So this, again, these first few days with the nodes being activated in multiple ways by multiple different planets and luminaries says trust the process, trust where you're being guided, trust these unexpected changes that are showing up as if out of nowhere, and detach from the emotional reaction you have to it and instead allow whatever this opportunity is to completely unfold. And then you're going to start to see the bigger picture. So that's a quick move through on Wednesday. And then as we get to Thursday, here we are at the very end of April, getting ourselves set up for this transformative full moon in the sign of Scorpio. And so as the moon dips into the sign, it is creating a bit of a yod, which is very brief. Don't know that it'll be so impactful unless you happen to have planets at 0 degrees of this Scorpio, the Gemini, and this Aries energy. So speaking up for yourself is something that is going to become important and may play a role in what you're willing to let go of or leave to make sure that you're staying fully in your power. That's what you start to understand as the moon readies you for the full moon that will come here on Friday the 1st. So all the energy that we've been seeing this week, all the shifts, all the changes, all the fated events and interactions and new ideas and, maybe unsettling activities as that Uranus energy starts getting settled in, right? It's in a new sign. It's got a new home for the next 7 years and it's testing the waters. It's sussing things out. And as it does, it's changing things in the collective that then impact us. So outer planets don't have, typically, unless they're with a personal planet of yours, a direct impact as far as change goes. So there's things going on around you, and it's how you respond respond to that energy of change and conflict and fate that is really setting you up for what it is that you need to conclude and let go at the time of this full moon. So this is really a transition day that is setting us up and preparing us for the endings that we are going to experience somewhere in our life, the completions, which is what always comes with a full moon. So the energy is intense, of course. The moon's at fall in Scorpio. It doesn't necessarily like being in the underworld where things are dark and cold and a little scary, right? It likes things to be safe and secure, and nothing in Scorpio land feels safe and secure, especially when you got Pluto, ruler of Scorpio, that likes to test you and see if you're going to give in to your fears or if you're going to conquer them. And not everybody likes to face their fears, but when the moon's in Scorpio for a couple of days every month, there's something that can frighten us that we have to learn to take our power back from. And that's how we're going to be tested here on Thursday, the 30th. So let's take a look at what all is going on at the time of this full moon. So what I do love about where the moon and the sun are meeting up is they're both at 11 degrees. And so of course, then that creates this 11-11 portal. So we have the sun shining light from the things that you put value in. And then we have the moon, like I said, in Scorpio, in this sign that has nothing to do with the material world. It has things to do with power and intimacy and sexuality and taboo, the occult, right? These are all kind of risky things that when we experience them, we can have transformative events, right? This is something very intense, where the sun in Taurus is grounded, it's earthy, it shows you the rewards that are possible. And the moon's like, but this powerful experience is just as important. And so you're balancing your material needs with your spiritual needs in order to understand what it is that you need to conclude at this time. So there may be something you're involved in. Maybe it's a little too risky and it is affecting your financial security. So in order to have better financial security, there might be somebody or something or some situation that you have to let go of and you have to release in order to have healthier boundaries as far as your finances go. But this is very much going to come down to your sign and where you have this happening. Also could tie back to the new moon that we had 6 months ago. And with that new moon in Scorpio, what were the intentions that you set for yourself? Are you anywhere near them? Have you totally forgotten about them? If so, now's the time to get to work and use the energy of this new full moon, over the next 2 weeks before we get to the next new moon to wrap things up and to finish them up. So at the same time as the sun and moon are in opposition with one another, we have a couple other connections that are going on around us that are influencing how we finish this work. We've got that Venus energy now at 9 degrees, which again is another ending degree. She speaks in harmony with that Saturn, also at 9 degrees in Aries. So this is a leader. This could be an older leader and a younger woman that makes some kind of an announcement, some kind of an agreement. This is an easier energy, even though Saturn's not easy, but a sextile is easier energy, and Venus's energy is easy as well. So there's something supporting the work that we need to do at this time. And even though Venus has moved on a bit from Pluto, there's still whatever the work was that now you're ready to move forward with. And Pluto rules Scorpio. And so what Pluto's doing is still, as I mentioned, starting to speak in harmony with that Neptune energy still, with the Saturn energy, more strongly with the Uranus energy. So we've got these energies in the background, again, helping to move us forward. And so there's some kind of connection that is needed. There is a need to help others, be of service to others as a result of this full moon in the sign of Scorpio because of where Pluto is placed. Additionally, we see Mercury in Aries meeting up with Chiron in Aries. So Chiron, the wounded healer, Chiron, the centaur, half man, half horse, meeting with Mercury, who has information, who has our voice and has us speaking up. And they're also meeting at another 9-degree. So there is this goal that you have to end something that could be a health issue in some way, or you could gain the information that's needed to bring a health issue to conclusion, which of course would transform you in some way back into a healthier person. But this is a lot of 9 energy that is going on around this full moon that is, again, helping us bring closure and endings somewhere in our life. So wherever you have 11 degrees of Scorpio, wherever you have other planets at 11 degrees or 9 degrees, right? They're being strongly activated at this time. And yes, of course, that 9-degree energy does speak very closely with this full moon energy as well, but there's no direct connection to the moon in Scorpio. It's, as I mentioned, something kind of subtle, hidden beneath the surface that is going on, that you can feel is going on. So whatever is showing up, whatever door is closing for you, let it close, because whatever we end now, we have an opportunity for a fresh start. And because that Scorpio energy can be, a crisis of some kind, you don't want to keep living in that energy or feeling like you're constantly in some crisis, especially financially. And so it's a good time to show up and let whatever this is go that you've been overly attached to. It's not serving you. It's not helping you. So it's time to set yourself free. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do the breakdown by sign in the next video so that you have this one to just reference for all of the days of the week. So let us move ahead to the weekend. So after the full moon, of course, we're still very much in the energy of the full moon. The moon is still staying in the sign of Scorpio, but of course it is beginning to move forward and move on. On Saturday, what we see is that Mercury energy in the sign of Aries now at 29 degrees. So the 29 degrees called an anaretic degree. It can be critical. It can be a crisis. I like to consider it a test of some kind. So as this planet finishes its 3-week approximate window through the sign of Aries, there's something that we're tested on. Did we learn to speak up for ourselves? Did we learn to think for ourselves? Or did we decide to try to ignore all of the information that was presented to us and try to just not speak up? Well, if you ignored the work, you will definitely be tested. If you did the work, you can see a bit of a reward for being strong-willed and strong-minded. Now, there will be some who could use this energy to, maybe try to scare people into doing things, but it's also a really good day to be careful as far as travel goes, because of course, Mercury rules transportation, Mercury in the sign of Aries, which is war. So this could get a little intense as far as trying to send a message that is very threatening in some way. So if that feels like you, don't do it. Don't give in to that. Advance, move forward, move on. Because as this Mercury energy moves into the sign of Taurus, then we can start thinking differently or creating financial agreements that will help move us forward. So speaking of moving forward, then let's finish out the week here on Sunday, which has us now, as I mentioned, seeing Mercury in the sign of Taurus fully moving forward. And we start to see this Jupiter and Cancer energy creating a square with Mars. So talk about changes in war. This is where, Jupiter steps in, kind of like the Pope, and says, are we sure there isn't a better way? Isn't there a different way where we can resolve these conflicts? How can you still get what you want, but take care of the people in your country and stop causing them harm? That's the conversation that we're having on Sunday, May 3rd. And this one will last into next week, as Mars takes about 6 weeks to move all the way through. And Mars is very strong. That's why this conflict is still going on. And people are like, when's this going to end? Well, it's definitely not ending until Mars gets out of the sign of Aries and heads into the sign of Gemini, which we will see happening around the new moon in Taurus. So we've got lots of changes and transitions that we're still working through slowly and being introduced to them slowly. But what I find fascinating about that moon energy, now that it's left Scorpio, it's in the sign of Sagittarius. And again, forming a T-square with the nodes. So there's something about foreign people, foreign places, foreign countries, and their homeland that are creating a fated change. And then at the same time, the moon speaks in harmony with Pluto. It speaks in harmony with that Neptune and Saturn energy. So this is a big emotional day. But Sagittarius is about knowing what you need to do and then not being afraid to do it, and being extremely confident in your knowledge so that you know what changes need to happen. And so there could be some very big, significant changes overseas as a result of the energy that we see here on Sunday, the 3rd. All right. So the biggest aspect of the week, of course, Uranus getting settled into the sign of Gemini, and this very powerful full moon in the sign of Scorpio. And then, as I mentioned, as we do a quick look ahead to next week, the biggest challenge is going to be the square between Jupiter and Mars. So this Jupiter expands on whatever it touches. So it's a conflict. So there is a conflict that is escalating here on Monday, May 4th. Of course, may the 4th be with you is going to be said a lot. And it might really be a poignant statement as we get into this big conflict. As I mentioned, that is just going to carry us forward throughout the week until this Martian energy creates a little space between it and Jupiter. But that really, as we look at the week ahead, is the biggest shifts and changes or conflicts is going to be that energy. And besides that, there's a lot of work with maybe the South Node, but not too much going on next week. So it's not going to be a lot to talk about. So I will just put a little pin in this conversation for next week and build it into that full moon in Scorpio video where I'll give you the breakdown by sign on what you may be looking to conclude as a result of this transformative full moon in the sign of Scorpio. So be sure that you've liked, commented, and subscribed to my channel so that you have easy access to that full moon video that I will post closer to the full moon time so it gets the attention it deserves. But in the meantime, enjoy this video and bookmark it. Come back, check in, see how the energy is actually showing up for you. And make sure that you know your chart and that you're watching these videos from your rising sign perspective, because that's going to see the changes in your day-to-day life. Your sun sign perspective is the things that you may be experiencing internally. Maybe you and your close friends know you're going through this, but not everybody else does. And then that moon is really about your emotional self and what you're dealing with that maybe nobody else has any clue is going on inside. All right, let me know what questions you have. Watch the daily tarot cards. I've been asking people to give me questions, even if it's not very specific to you, but you're curious about a topic. Ask me in the comments of those daily tarot cards, and I will use that as I pull a card and get feedback and get answers for you, which will just make doing that a little bit more fun. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I can't wait to explore this full moon in Scorpio with you, and we'll talk about that more in a few days. All right, take care, everybody.